Legislature is back in session. Good morning. Mr. Vice Speaker, do you have an announcement, please, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Currently, Mr. Speaker, we're currently experiencing some technical difficulties and unable to live stream our proceedings on YouTube. However, the public can still view us on the legislative channel, both on Docomo and GTA. The proceedings will also be recorded and uploaded to the legislative YouTube channel once everything gets back to normal. And we apologize for the inconvenience and appreciate your patience and understanding as our MIS, Mr. Speaker, and AD staff work diligently to resolve these issues.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll go ahead and proceed. And the next item on the agenda is Bill number 77-38 COR. Gentlelady from Tumuning, Senator Taitigui, you are recognized, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I motion to place Bill 77-38 COR, which is an act to add a new 1041161 to Article 1 of Chapter 104 of Title 21 Guam Code Annotated relative to clarifying real estate brokerage agreements onto the third reading file, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to speak on it.
You can proceed. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Bill number 77-38. It's a bill that strengthens fairness, transparency, consumer protection in Guam's real estate industry by requiring that all brokerage agreements be in writing. Over 25 states have enacted similar requirements, demonstrating that this is both a best practice and a proven model of consumer protection. Bill 77-33 mandates that written agreements be executed before the start of brokerage services between licensed brokers or salespersons and any part to a real estate transaction, whether a seller, a buyer, lessor, or licensee. These agreements must clearly state essential terms, including start and end dates, compensation arrangements, and cancellation provisions. By putting these requirements into law, we are ensuring clarity, accountability, and protection for all parties. Mr. Chris Felix of Century 21 testified in strong support of the bill, pointing out that this bill brings Guam into alignment with U.S. Department of Justice mandates and recent court rulings, which require written agreements not only with the seller but also with buyers. He also noted that the Guam Association of Realtors have already implemented this practice, and Bill 77-38 ensures that all licensures, not just realtor members, comply. Food for thought, or just, fun fact, that the word realtor is patent. So in the Guam Association of Realtors, you can only call them a realtor versus a real estate agent is not patent and is commonly used. So there are two types of titles in that perspective. Also, lastly, the Department of Revenue and Taxation, through the Director Maria Lazama, submitted testimony in support, emphasizing that this bill provides structure and clarity without creating any adverse impact on the agency's licensing and regulatory functions. Mr. Speaker, real estate transactions are often the largest financial decisions our families and business will ever make. Oral agreements or vague understandings put consumers at an unnecessary risk. This bill ensures that from the very beginning, every party has a clear and enforceable agreement in hand. I respectfully ask my colleagues for their support on Bill 77-38 COR. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill, 77-38 COR, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill, any senators wishing? Gentleman from Talofofo, sir, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to discuss Bill 77-38. 1925 Hooper LLC versus the National Association of Realtors. This policy comes on the heels of a significant class action settlement. The lawsuit claims that the NAR created and implemented rules that required home sellers to pay commissions to the broker or agent representing the buyer and that caused home sellers to pay total commissions at inflated rates. It also alleges that they enforce these rules through anti-competitive and unlawful practices. The settlement put to rest long litigation with impacts here in our backyard. Bill 77 empowers consumers with choice when it comes to services, compensation, and marketing, and marketing strategies that meet their needs. Real estate professionals should always strive to work with sellers to ensure they fully understand their options, including the ability to make offers of compensation off MLS to brokers working with buyers. Each day, scores of local residents make critical decisions about which investments to buy or sell based on the recommendations of a professional. It could be a home, property, stock, bond, or business. These professionals offer advice through which individuals and families are making a decision for their respective future. Building on a similar proposal offered during the previous legislature, Bill 77 is a consumer-based bill designed to enhance consumer protection, transparency, and fairness in Guam's real estate industry moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time.
Thank you very much. On the bill, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Georgia. I won't make that mistake today.
Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. I stand in support of this bill, and I thank the author for this, as a previous speaker said, consumer protection bill. And it aligns us with national best practices, and of course, before the final settlement in that lawsuit, aligns Guam's real estate practices with national standards for transparency, fairness, and accountability. Some of the things that it does is mandatory written buyer-agent agreements. And it ensures that buyers are fully aware of commission obligations, providing transparency and fairness. Sales can happen directly between buyers and sellers, but protections apply when a buyer is represented by an agent. It ensures that all these professionals are treated consistently under Guam's law, clarifies definitions for real estate salesman, real estate broker, buyer, seller, leaser, and lessee. It applies to all licensed agents, including both realtors and non-realtor licensed agents. The mandatory written buyer-agent agreements are going to have clear compensation terms, defined agreement duration, disclosure of conflicts of interest, and termination clauses. Again, this is just prevent any misunderstanding and make it very, very clear in these very big transactions for homeowners. So I thank the author again for this bill to protect buyers.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators. Senator Tadigo, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, to simplify it for those who are listening, and how did this come about, this whole lawsuit that came about. And what was happening in the U.S., a lot of areas in the States, realtors were making agreements with buyers and saying that their commission is, like, let's say 6%. And that's the standard that's the commission that is being charged, when actually there is no set commission at all. There's nothing in the law, in the books, that said it's 6%. So these realtors were charging that amount, telling people that that's the commission amount, throughout the U.S., but it wasn't. And later on, they found out, through people complaining, and wait, where does it say it's 6%? We've been charged 6% by these real estate agents or realtors. And so they filed a lawsuit, for this, and that's how it came about. And actually, the realtors, which, as I mentioned earlier, for a fun fact, that it's patent to be a realtor, you have to be a part of the real estate association to be able to have that title as a seller, to be a realtor. Now, if you're not part of the real estate association, you're just called a real estate agent. which is not patent. So that what was happening and caused all this, issues and the lawsuit to go federally, and actually awards were sent out quite a bit. I think in the hundreds of millions were sent out. So now all the Association of Realtors throughout the United States has to comply through federal regulations. Now, what this bill does, it already, covers the Guam realtors on this island because they're under the same jurisdiction or association. But it also covers now brokers. It also covers real estate agents that are not part of the real estate association. So, and that's why I think we're bringing a fair playing field here for both sides, one who's a real estate agent and broker and one who's with the association. So it's as simple as that. And I think fairness, like as I mentioned earlier, and clarity is what is important. So I ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I motion to place Bill 77-38 into the voting file.
On the motion to place Bill 77-38 COR into the third reading file, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. You good gentleman from Jigo, sir, you're up. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place Bill 91-38 as amended by the Committee on Public Safety, Emergency Management, and Guam National Guard in the third reading file, and I would like to discuss it. And I will read out the title of the bill.
Please, and then I'll go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill 98, correction 91-38 as amended is an act to add a new section N to 63-201 and amend 63-202A and subsection 63-203A, all of Article 2, Chapter 63, Title 10, Guam Code annotated relative to establishing qualification requirements for the Guam National Guard leadership.
You can proceed, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Bill 91 is a bill that supports accountability, trust, and local leadership within one of our island's most important organizations, the Guam National Guard, and will mandate a minimum 5 years residency requirement for people nominated to the office of the Adjutant General and Assistant Adjutant General for both the Army and Air components of our Guard. Leadership in the Guam National Guard is not solely determined by military rank or federal recognition. It requires immeasurable commitment and awareness of our island's distinct culture and strategic circumstances, and the ability to lead from a place of connection and accountability to our island people. The Adjutant General and their assistants are responsible to the Guard's readiness, integrity, and day-to-day operations. Their actions have an impact not only on our service personnel, but also on our island overall safety, security, and resilience. By mandating these leaders to have Guam as their home of record for at least 5 years before their appointment, we further ensure they provide context as well as credentials. They provide living experience, local knowledge, and a genuine interest in the well-being of our community. This isn't about exclusion. It is about ensuring that people in the highest levels of our Guard leaderships have a solid understanding of Guam's history, issues, and beliefs. Because leadership without connection lacks direction. These resident requirements also help boost public confidence in our Guard leadership. It reassures the people of Guam that those in charge are not only capable, but also dedicated to our island and are completely aware of our specific needs. Thus, on all amendments made in this version, change the introduced language of a resident of Guam to shall have Guam as his or her home of record or serve in the Guam National Guard for a term of not less than 5 years prior to appointment. While we are forever grateful for the service of our Guam sons and daughters, we can ensure that the Guam National Guard is led by those who truly call Guam at the highest level of leadership. And for anybody who may think that I may be favoring this bill majorly, I am a retired Army National Guard. I'm very proud of serving the Guard and serving our people of Guam and our nation. and I humbly ask for the support of all my colleagues to pass Bill 91-38. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill 91-38C, or any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
I stand in support of this bill, and I thank the author for this. And I'm grateful that we are able to do this by our local law. And I think this will assist in ensuring continuity and also ensuring additional benefits for those who are serving in our National Guards, both the Air Force and the Army. And the bill also applies to the assistants for the Adjutant General, and so I fully support that. And I do believe this will bring benefits for those who have served here and opportunities. Sizusmasi.
Thank you. Any other senator? Gentleman from Tatalofofo, so you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to rise in support of Bill 91-38. The center of gravity for our resilience as an island community in Micronesia and as part of the American family lies just up the road in Barrigada, Fort Juan Muña, and a section of Anderson Air Force Base. They are an integral part of the 430,000 guardsmen and guardswomen who serve and protect the 54 states and territories of the United States of America. At the top of the organizational chart is the Commander-in-Chief, our executive, and right below is the all-important Adjutant General, federally authorized. I appreciated the markup process on this measure in the committee. To me, this stood out, and this can be found in the committee report. Quote, by requiring an individual appointed to serve as Adjutant General of the Guam National Guard to have Guam as their home of record or have served in the Guam National Guard at least for a term of not less than 5 years prior to appointment, the committee finds that Bill 91-38 COR as amended prioritizes the selection of Guam National Guard leadership from among those under GUN command or where Guam is recorded as the home of the military service member when commissioned, appointed, enlisted, inducted, or ordered on active duty. The same qualification applies to individuals appointed to the positions of Assistant Adjutant General for the Guam Army National Guard and Assistant Adjutant General for the Guam Air National Guard. Close quote. Since 1975, the Guam National Guard has grown from its original group that was founded and stood up by then Guam Governor Paul Calvo to the now 1,700 men and women, if God willing, represent the future leadership of the Guam National Guard. In 2003, I spent much time trying to help a governor of Guam select an adjutant general. At that time, nearly 22 years ago, this proved to be such a difficult task. It would lead eventually to two men. The latter, Donald Goldhorn, led a significant effort to grow the leadership of the organization. Men and women who would attend the Army or Air War College, men and women who could be federally authorized or recognized. This bill is a 2-decade journey. There are some that may be hypercritical of this particular policy. They will say that the other state or territory units that have similar leadership requirements are challenged to lead, challenging their, if you would say, to advance their respective guard units. Challenge to command. I disagree. These views represent a very small voice that touches on the growing pains of the National Guard. We have a 50-year-old Guam National Guard as part of a 389-year-old National Guard that has served Guam and America during its most difficult of times locally and nationally. Leadership that comes directly from our National Guard sends a strong message of aspiration to those who serve in our Army and Air Guards. I support this policy approach, and I, without hesitation, support passage of this bill. And I respectfully ask the author to include me as a co-sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time to speak on Bill 91-38.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill, Gentlelady, Ranking Member from Bago Bay, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Manana Sizus, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of Bill 91-38 COR. And I want to thank the good author from Jigo, Tatlu, for giving me the opportunity for being a part of this sponsorship. And the good senator from Talafofo literally explained and delineated not just the history, but the prerequisites needed to go through the selection for this position to make sure that the intention and the mandate for a minimum residency of Guam of no less than 5 years prior to the appointment of the Adjutant General or the home of record being a part thereof. For me, that does give the opportunity for a lot of the locals to who have the qualifications. And Mr. Speaker, you and I know that there are a number of our maybe classmates, right? A couple that may qualify for this position, but we're never really given the opportunity. But in that same effort, I just want to say I support this and want to thank the author for giving me the opportunity to be a part of it and know that this is a very good bill, and it doesn't take away from all the other prerequisites that are needed, whether it be nationally or federally or what have you here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. On the bill, Vice Speaker, gentleman from FME, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand in full support of Bill 91-38 COR. I believe that this bill promotes and will boost morale in the Guam National Guard. And I think that knowing that our men and women who have achieved that rank and that status of being federally recognized in the rank of colonel, that they have that opportunity now to advance to become either the Adjutant General or the Assistant Adjutant General. And things like that, I think, always promotes good morale within the entire Guard, because then they know that one of their own who has grown through the ranks with them will be in charge of them. Is there a need for outside at times to have someone from the outside? Perhaps. I mean, there were good generals that came in, General Goldhorn, who once led the Guam National Guard. But now we got to look at what we can do to promote within. And this is an opportunity for that to happen. It's just like myself. I have a nephew who is a full board colonel that's serving active duty. Would I like for him to come back and become the Adjutant General someday? Absolutely, but I think he needs to fit the requirements of either serving in the National Guard for 5 years or being a resident here for 5 years prior to establishing that rank of Adjutant General or Assistant Adjutant General. So these types of legislations that we put into safeguarding our local National Guard men and women is something that I always look forward to, and I truly support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Barragata, ma'am, you're recognized.
Sis Masip and Buenas, half a day, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of Bill number 91-38 because this measure strengthens the connection between Guam, our National Guard leadership, and the people that they serve. So, Mr. Speaker, for too long, appointments to the highest positions in the Guard have relied solely on military qualifications without requiring a meaningful and sustained relationship with Guam itself, our island, our people, our culture. This bill corrects that by establishing a clear standard requiring either 5 years of service in Guam National Guard or having Guam as one's home of record. We ensure that those entrusted with these leadership roles are not only technically capable, but they also are deeply rooted in our island's values, culture, and strategic priorities. Mr. Speaker, Bill number 91-38 COR is about ensuring that those entrusted with leading the Guam National Guard are not only highly qualified military professionals, but also deeply rooted in our community, as I mentioned earlier, that they sworn to protect. Leadership in the Guam demands more than technical skills, Mr. Speaker. It requires a profound understanding of our people, our history, and our strategic environment, especially at this point in time. Those who live among us are better prepared to serve with insight, empathy, and accountability if they are familiar. This bill strengthens local leadership pipelines, enhances public trust in military institutions, and reinforces our commitment to self-determination and local readiness. I believe that Bill number 91-38 strikes a responsible balance between military professionalism and community-centered leadership. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this measure and look forward to working with my colleagues, stakeholders, and the administration to advance its intent and implementation. I'd like to commend the author of this bill, and I'd like to ask that be added as a co-sponsor. Sidus Masi once again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentleman from Ipan, sir, you recognize.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, Manana Sidus to the people of Guam. Thank you for watching our session on this Thursday morning. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to rise and lodge my support for the bill on the record. Back when I was in the media, I covered extensively the issue of the appointment of a former adjutant general. And at the time, I was approached by many members of the Guard who told me that this appointment didn't measure up, not to the local requirements, but to the federal requirements. And so I absolutely believe that the head of our National Guard should be a Chamorro. And I know that we're dancing around not saying that, but you know, hopefully with the residency requirement, we'll get a Chamorro to lead the National Guard, one who meets both the federal mandates and you know, hopefully the new residency requirements that this bill proffer should it be signed into law. And already I know that some of my colleagues are aware of rumors of the selection of a new adjutant general, as the current one has indicated that he might be running for political office with, I don't know, one of my colleagues in here. So, and I know the dispensa, Mr. Speaker. But I do know that the rumor is that we're looking at a candidate who's serving off island, and so I'm not sure how much the bill has to do with that, but I definitely believe that we should have a leader at the Guard who calls Guam home, who has lived here on Guam, and I just wanted again to rise and state my support for the bill, Mr. Speaker. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Any senators left to speak on the bill? Gentle lady from Tamuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It always makes you wonder why a bill like this, has come up. As the speaker before me was talking, is there any shenanigans going on or not on this? But I think, what we want to do is ensure that those who come to serve Guam understand the heartbeat of Guam, not just on a military perspective, but on a cultural perspective is very important. I just have a question, though, to ask of the author of the legislation. It says, Assistant Adjutant General for the Army. Now, what's the difference from, just stating the Adjutant General? So we want to ensure that the Assistant Adjutant General, too, as well, it has certain qualifications, but not as much as the Adjutant General, because here, in this legislation, and then, can you explain what's the difference on qualifications between the Adjutant General and the Assistant Adjutant General?
Mr. Speaker, the only difference when you really look at it, the word assistant is the assistant to adjutant general, and that person could be the next adjutant general. But when you ask for qualification, they're generally the same. Because in order to get promoted to a 1-star, you might meet the requirements to be a 1-star from colonel, from a 06, a full-bird colonel. And this all we did was we included the same requirements to be the adjutant general is the same with the assistant adjutant general. And that's a 1-star. And they're both for the Army and a 1-star for the Air National Guard. And then the National Guard adjutant general is a 2-star. So in order to get the 2-star, you got to go get 1-star first. There's really no difference. Same requirements. Or same qualification.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Okay, so the question I have, too, is on, so we're saying that the Assistant Adjutant General, as well as the Adjutant General, his or her home of record, or served in the National Guard for a term of not less than 5 years appointment. So basically, it says an or, right? So, or her home of record, or served in the National Guard for at least the term of not less than 5 years. Okay, so then they could have served in another state, another territory or another U.S. state. In order to qualify, and that's my question. If the author should yield, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. Yes, if the question is about the HOR, home of record, for folks that are familiar with the military, when you join the military, you have to identify your home of record, which most of us in Guam, like myself and many of us that are veterans here, we identify Guam as our home of record. That means we started from Guam. Now, if, for example, you join the Army, Guam National Guard, home of record is Guam, and then you happen to be reassigned to California or anywhere in the United States, you still maintain your home of record unless you choose to change. Once you change, then you're basically like breaking connection with Guam. And then the other requirement was, and the beauty of home of record is good for taxes. So most of the people that join the military that go off island, they're like, I'm keeping Guam as my home record because I don't pay local, state and federal taxes at the same time, just federal.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, that does explain, the process and, taxes. But in Section A on in 63203, line 6, Section A, it says, be a citizen of the United States and shall have Guam as his or her home of record, or served in the National Guard for a term of not less than 5 years prior to the appointment. Now, everybody talked about how We want that one adjutant general not just to be, well-versed and, understand the ways of war, warfare, or what is needed to protect our home land, but also have that connection culturally. So technically, this is not requiring the adjutant general or the assistant adjutant general to at least have served at least 5 years on Guam before qualifying. Is that true, Mr. Speaker, to ask the author?
Do you wish to yield to the...
Yeah, Mr. Speaker. We start off home of record, then we go next to or serve in the Guam Guard. I can't understand what she's referring to, but the likelihood is anybody that comes to the Guam Guard and is willing to commit 5 years and be part of the community, I think that's a pretty strong investment. And once you get to that point and then you make 1-star, that's further investment. These people, and many of our people that are in Guam have come to Guam, stayed on Guam, contributed to our community, and they become a Guamanian, or not a Chamorro, but a Guamanian. And that's what we have on Guam. Many Guamanians, but they make it na Chamorro. I hope that answers that question. But there are many Chamorros. Many of our people in Guam are qualified today to be appointed and serve our Guam National Guard.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it does. It says no. There's no requirement, that they have to be at least on Guam for 5 years or, been on this island. And, I just hope that whoever does choose this adjutant general and assistant adjutant general, that it be someone, from this island that understands the heartbeat and the culture and the respect that we have and the love for their homeland, that is chosen. It would have been nice, that we can have this bill, state that. It has to be somebody who at least has been on this island for 5 years in order to qualify. But it doesn't say that in this legislation. So, but it does imply it, that this is one of the qualifications. So hopefully, whoever becomes governor, reads that and understands that, the intent of this body was to find somebody who can truly understand our island and our culture. So I hope that resonates to whoever, so, I expect, I expect that most of this other stuff is a qualification, like being a U.S. citizen in order to join the Guard. And that's part of being in the Guard. But other than that, I thank you for the opportunity to just express my concerns and hopefulness that whoever becomes the Adjutant General and Assistant Adjutant General has those qualifications for Guam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Any other senator wishing to speak on this, on the bill? Any other senator? No other senator? Senator Silagstein, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to first make a motion to add amendment to add additional co-sponsors, such as Senator Terlai and Senator Calvo. And if there's anyone else, and I have you, Senator Chris, you're on it. Senator Gumatauto. Well, we need to add you, Senator Gumatauto. Thank you, Senator Gumatauto. Senator Barnett. And I think I pretty much got everyone that's here, Mr. Speaker. Oh, and you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, please add you. You're a veteran. You need to be added. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if that, my colleagues will allow that.
Okay, on the motion to add all members present who are not already been identified as co-sponsors, to add them as co-sponsors to the bill. Are there any objections? Okay, it's Senator Terlai, Senator Calvo, Senator Gumatauto, Senator Barnett, and Senator Taidigui? No? No. Okay. And myself.
Yes.
Okay, are there any objections? Already, Esta? Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered. You want to complete it?
I'll close. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and colleagues for the discussion on Bill 91. This bill has far-reaching impacts for those in the Guam Army and Air Force National Guard, whose service ultimately affects our Guam family, as many of our brothers and sisters serve our island and nation. This requirement for the top brass in the Guard to have Guam as their home of record for at least 5 years prior to appointment sets the tone for leadership that understands Guam and all that she is capable of in the defense of our island and the country. As I said earlier, leadership in the Guam National Guard is not solely determined by military rank or federal certification. It should also be determined by the candidate's commitment and awareness of our island's distinct culture and strategic circumstances, and the ability to lead from a place of connection and accountability, providing a living experience, local knowledge, and a genuine interest in the well-being of our island. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Oversight Chair and his team on the Committee on the Guam National Guard for his support and working with us to strengthen this bill. And you know, one of the things that many of our people of Guam have approached me when there was ever an appointment to the Guam Guard, Mafai Sinzu, Hafa, Tada Tsumuruta Sinama, Mumagas Gana Ulu. This bill makes that happen. Thank you, and I ask for your vote by my colleagues to pass this bill. And I ask it be moved to the third reading file.
On the motion to move Bill 91-38 COR to the third reading, are there any objections? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Ranking Member, Senator Tina Rosa Munia Barnes. You recognize me.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place into the third reading file with the opportunity to speak is Bill 99-38 COR as amended, which is an act to add a new Section 3118, Section 3118.1, Section 3118.2, and Section 3118.3 to Chapter 3 of Title 16, Guam Code annotated relative to the driver's license reciprocity agreements with foreign countries. And I'd like to speak, please.
You can proceed, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, colleagues, Bill 99-38 provides our government the authority to enter into driver's license reciprocity agreements with foreign governments. This measure is modeled after similar legislation already adopted in other United States jurisdictions. And under this agreement, eligible foreign nationals may exchange their valid driver's licenses for a Guam license without undergoing redundant testing. Likewise, Guam residents abroad would benefit from the same courtesy. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that many of the countries we would partner with, and I'll give you examples, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea, have licensing systems that are more stringent and complex than our own. Their drivers undergo extensive training and rigorous testings before being licensed. And in many respects, they are held to a higher bar than we are here on Guam. So those eligible under these agreements bring proven driving competency, and moreover, Guam is a bridge in the Pacific. We are America in Asia, or Asia in America, and our island has long welcomed students, military personnel, professionals, and visitors from trusted partners such as, like I said earlier, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines. And we are part of this vast blue continent, and we sit at the heart of its regional economy, and it is only fitting that our laws reflect Guam's role as a leader and connector in the Pacific. So finally, Mr. Speaker, I'd be remiss if I didn't take the time to thank the good chair of the committee, the senator from Tamuning, for further strengthening this bill. through thoughtful amendments, and I humbly ask my colleagues to support this effort. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, gentlelady from Tamuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the Oversight Chair that reviewed the process of this legislation, it was thorough, and I also like to thank the author of the legislation, who was there during the markup meeting, had her staff there to ensure that, certain things of concern were addressed, and they were addressed, Mr. Speaker, down to the right person to oversee this program, and which would be the governor. And in the committee report on the findings and intent, it has a full explanation, but just in a close nutshell, we've changed the revenue and taxation as an agency. We felt that it's the governor who has that authority to do so from one, consulate to another of a foreign country. She has that authority, not a government agency, number one. We wanted to make sure that those participating are in good standings with the U.S. as well. So we incorporated that, as well as providing the department may also waive written vision and skill testing only upon determining that the foreign licensing standards are substantially equivalent to the one of Guam and in compliance with the Real ID Act. That was very important, and we incorporated that mechanism too, to be ensured. The other one that we incorporated was the department may include terms in reciprocity agreements that allow for the return of the applicant's foreign driver's license upon expiration of the Guam license or upon applicant's department of Guam. Those are one of the major complaints that we hear from constituents, especially like for our neighboring islands, when they come to Guam and they have to give up their, Palauan driver's license, to get their license. And then if they decide to go back to Palau, they need their license to drive in Palau as well, because of the length of time they could stay there, that they have a certain amount of time to get their license. Like on Guam, we have a timeline. If you have your out-of-state license, you have a certain amount of time to get a Guam license. So, these things were addressed, and I think we found a real solid playing ground for this reciprocity, and appreciate the attention that was paid to this by the office of our good colleague from Pago Bay. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill, gentleman from Talafofo, your recognition.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to speak on Bill 99-38. I support the measure, and the process of making the changes in the committee markup were significant. It's exactly what our process allows and demands in our legislative branch. The governor of Guam will soon be able to enter into international driver's license reciprocity agreements at a time when places like our key market of Japan is making big changes the other way. This bill aims to establish a structured process to verify foreign licenses, ensure compliance with Real ID standards, and promote safe, lawful driving practices. I agree that by implementing eligibility standards, exchange procedures, and reporting requirements, this bill provides a mechanism to enhance road safety while accommodating foreign nationals with verified licensing credentials. The accident data reinforces the importance of such a policy here in Guam and the urgency of adopting rules to govern foreign license recognition. There were only 200 non-U.S. citizens involved in some type of driver-related accidents over the past year. Our government can work better to advise international motorists of our rules of the road. Our government should and can be creative in this by requiring DOT to include in their reports any public safety incidents involving license holders issued in accordance with this measure. The bill as amended provides another way for our government to detect and prevent the submission of fraudulent information and ultimately support public safety on our roadways. The policy addresses the first steps toward a more formalized, regulated system to operate a motor vehicle in Guam with an international license. And I support the measure, and I ask the author to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for the time this morning.
Thank you very much. On the bill, Bill 99-38 COR. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentle lady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Senator Masi, I was just going to say on this bill that I appreciate the changes that were made by the committee. I think those add additional protections and support for Department of Revenue and Taxation who has to implement this. But if I could ask, on page 3, if the sponsor would yield, or the committee chair, under 3118.1 on line 14, it says that one of the requirements for this reciprocity is to provide proof of legal presence in Guam. And I just wanted to know, how are we going to define legal presence in Guam versus legal residency or some other category that we normally use? So this is unusual. Legal presence, I guess that could be tourists for a day or something. If they would yield to that, that would be my question.
Would the author of the legislation yield to the question? Why don't we take a recess? Take a recess. Back from recess.
Mr. Speaker, it was that proof, the provide proof of legal presence in Guam would be the address of where they're at.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
All right, so it just seems that then there is no real minimum requirement for time on Guam. You could be a one-day visitor and exchange driver's licenses. All right, when the other states do this, when the other states who have allowed reciprocity, do they use this term legal presence, or do they say legal residency or any other like time requirement?
Is that a question you wanted?
Yes, if they would yield, please.
Would the author or the oversight chair?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a very good question, because there are already laws in place for people who are visiting on the island, like I mentioned earlier about military. You know, they're allowed to keep their license a certain amount of time. There's also people who are visitors, who are tourists that come to Guam, who actually are allowed to keep their license. No need to get a Guam license after, I think it's the timeline is maybe 30 days that they can maintain it. Now, anything after that, you know, there's a responsibility, if they do plan on staying longer, to seek, you know, the driver's license. How do you prove that? It's as simple as your airline ticket. You know, when you want to prove anything, when did you get on island? You know, if you're a tourist, here's the date that I was on island. So just like anything, when you're driving, you need identification. And I hope that our tourist industry, that the rental cars are notifying them the guidelines and rules on this island to process, which is timeline you're going to be here. If you're going to be longer than that, you need to get a Guam driver's license. You need every kind of verification, having your airline ticket available to show when you landed on Guam, to give proof, like that. So I hope that answers the questions. I mean, that's the only logical thing I can think of at this point.
All right, thank you. And so the other change that was made in the bill was they added a designation of not only state sponsors of terrorism, but also countries deemed of particular concern for national security or public safety. And I was just wondering how that's going to be determined. The state terrorist sponsors of terrorism is as determined by the State Department. And I found on the State Department's website what they deem countries of particular concern, but these are normally for violations of religious freedom. And I couldn't find one specifically deemed particular concern for national security or public safety. But just wanted to know if the sponsor or the chair would yield as to this designation.
Mr. Speaker, I'll try and work that one in. If I'm not mistaken, there is already a list through the Homeland Security which is on the website that delineates all the different countries that do not fit with the relationships or partnerships with the United States.
Senator,
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to the author of the legislation. As we looked into this, the important part is that revenue tax, once this bill should pass, will arm themselves with every book guideline that's going to be needed and used as this moves forward. And one of them is, what site do you look at? I know the concern of the good speaker from Jotnya, Senator from Jotnya, asking, and these guidelines I'm sure are going to be put in place. Do you look at Homeland Security? Do you look at U.S. federal scenarios? And what would deem other states not allowing other, or territories not allowing other individual foreigners from obtaining a license? So, it's in the process. Once this passes, I'm sure they will provide that, get all that information ready.
Jesus Masi, my final question is, I know it's at the public hearing, the Consulate General of the Philippines submitted written testimony saying that they wanted clarification if the bill applies to them. The intent did not include them, but they stated short notice does not allow them to fully address issues, and they need to consult with relevant agencies in the Philippines first. Was there any effort to follow up on that, on whether they are eligible for inclusion?
thank you. Would the author or the oversight chair yield?
Yeah, if I may, we intentionally didn't want to put countries' names on the bill because times change real quickly, but this doesn't stop the Philippine Consulate General, and as I said before, this is a now mechanism between the governor and that foreign country. So the Consulate General will be working directly with the governor of Guam if they have any questions. We did mention that to her, the honorable consulate, that any concerns or questions she has to seek the answers or from the governor's office, who will oversee this, and then through the direction of the governor, that's where Reverend Tax will get their direction from.
Thank you.
Jesus Masi, and I appreciate that because I feel comfortable because the bill requires rules and regulations be made and pursuant to the AAA, so everyone will have notice as to who's covered or not and how they will be designated or determined, and how perhaps this legal presence will be proven. And I note that in the intent of the bill, they did cite a couple other states, particularly Texas recognizes Taiwan and South Korea. Maryland has agreements with Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. And Vermont has an agreement with Taiwan. Arizona has an agreement with Taiwan and South Korea. So hopefully, when creating the rules and regs, Revenue and Taxation will have some examples to look at, and hope be able to protect the people of Guam, and as is their duty. Si Diyos masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? No other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady, you can close, ma'am.
Thank you. Where did he go?
Where did who go?
I wanted to put a request for additional sponsorship, but he's not in the room. Senator on the floor. Mr. Speaker, on the motion to add additional sponsors, Senator Sean Gumatautau, Senator Shelley Cavo, okay, Vice Speaker Ada and Senator Joseph Augustine, and yourself, Mr. Speaker, if you'd like to.
There is a motion to include...
And Senator Jesse Lahan, the Oversight Chair of Tourism.
There is a motion to include senators as co-sponsors, Senator Sean Gumatautau, Senator Shelley Vicavo, Vice Speaker V. Anthony Ada, Senator Joseph Augustine, myself, and Senator Jesse A. Lohan. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I want to again thank the good Oversight Chair for facilitating this bill forward and making the additional amendments to strengthen this measure. And I want to say that this is a practical step that makes our government more efficient, strengthens our regional partnerships, and reflects Guam's role as a bridge in the Pacific. And I respectfully ask my colleagues for their support. And with that, I'd like to move to place Bill 99-38 COR as amended and further amended on the floor to the third reading voting file.
On the motion to move Bill 99-38 COR as amended by the committee and further amended on the floor to the third reading, is there any objections? No objections? So ordered. Gentlelady from Tamuning, Senator Tadigo, you are recognized.
Si Diyos masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to place Bill number 119-38 COR as enacted to reenact 5127D of Sub-Article C, Article 2, Chapter 5, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, as repealed in Republic Law 38-1, relative to restoring legislative oversight on exceptional term contracts, to the third reading file, and would like to speak on it.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I rise today to ask for this body's support of amended Bill 11938, a measure that restores legislative oversight over exceptional term contracts, and in doing so, restores the people's voice in decisions about the future for Guam's public lands. Public Law 38-1, passed earlier this year, created what I and many others believe to be a dangerous loophole. While it raised lease terms to 15 years in the name of economic development, it simultaneously stripped the legislature of its long-standing role in reviewing contracts that go beyond the threshold of 15 years. The result, agencies can now, with nothing more than a determination of need, enter into a contract for 30 to 50 to 100 years without a single public hearing, without legislative review, and without the people ever knowing the true cost of giving away what belongs to them. And I'm talking about anything over 15 years, colleagues. This is not efficiency, it's an invitation for abuse. It is how sweetheart deals are made behind closed doors, where the value of the public land is locked away for decades and accountability is lost. We know this story too well. We lived in it with leases like the ITC, YTK, where people were shortchanged and left with little resources. But Mr. Speaker, there are also a deep history that compels us to act. Mr. Speaker, it's an extraordinary honor to receive testimony from a former governor. We do not always have this privilege, and I wish to express my deep gratitude to former Governor Joseph Atta for taking the time to provide his insight. Out of the utmost respect for his distinguished service and recognizing the rarity of this occasion when he testified, I will now read his testimony in full for the benefit of those who are listening. Hafaday Chairman Atta, I write in strong support of Bill 119-38 as an act to restore legislative oversight on exceptional term contracts involving our lands, public lands and facilities. As a former governor of Guam, I have always believed that transparency, accountability, and the prudent management of our public assets are essential to effective government leadership and operation. This measure appropriately seeks to reinstate a vital safeguard, ensuring that significant long-term agreements involving public property are subject to legislative overview and approval. This is not about creating unnecessary bureaucracy. It is about upholding public trust and protecting the interests of our people now and for the future generation. Exceptional term contracts often involve leases or agreements of substantial value and long-term consequences to our island. Allowing such agreements to proceed without legislative oversight invites the risks of decisions being made without significant public input, long-term visions, or adequate checks and balances. Bill number 119-38 ensures that these decisions will be made in open, with the people's elected representatives weighing in on matters that can shape our community's future. I respectfully urge your committee and the legislature to support this passage. Thank you for your attention in this important matter and for your dedicated service to the people of Guam. Sidu Osmasi, former Governor of Guam, Joseph Atta. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to recognize and express my sincere appreciation for former Governor Eddie Baza-Calvo. His continued guidance and support for this body is an invaluable asset. With the same sense of profound respect and acknowledging the rarity of receiving such insight, I now read his testimony in full. Hafaday Chairman Atta, I'm writing to express my support for Bill 119-38 COR, which restores an important layer of legislative oversight over exceptional term contracts involving public land and facilities. During my time in public service, both as a senator and as a governor, I've seen the lasting consequences of decisions made without proper transparency and accountability. Long-term leases and special contracts involving public property must be held to the highest standard because they can shape Guam's future for decades. These are not just administrative decisions. They are decisions about the people's land, the people's opportunity, and often the people's money. Bill 119 puts back in place a mechanism that ensures large-scale agreements receive public scrutiny before they are finalized. This kind of check and balance is not an obstruction. It's good governing. It ensures that the public sees exactly what they're getting in return for assets that belong to all of us. The people of Guam deserve to know that their elected officials are watching closely when millions of dollars contracts, million-dollar contracts, or century-long leases are proposed. Legislative oversight strengthens public confidence and helps prevent mistakes that could cost us down the road. I commend the author of this bill or stepping up to protect the public's interest, and I urge the committee to move this legislation forward. Signed, Sijus Masi. Signed, Eddie Baza-Calvo, former governor of Guam. Mr. Speaker, also during the public hearing, the public auditor, a former speaker to this body who testified in person saying, I'd like to just join the two statements by the two former governors in support of this legislation. I don't think I need to say anything more. I think they said plenty and very eloquently. So if possible, I join them. So, Mr. Speaker, this is what part of the public auditor said, and he's right. Our governors spoke. They saw the issue on passing a bill that took the ability for us to oversee, to be the eyes and ears of our community, of our public who elected us into office. All 15 of us. So I thank you for the opportunity, and I respectfully urge my colleagues to join me and these governors and our public auditor and the bipartisan coalition of co-sponsors in this bill in passing Bill 119-38. Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. On the bill, Bill 119-38 COR, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the bill? Any senators wishing to speak on the bill? Gentlelady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
I want to thank, again, I rise in full support of this bill. I want to thank the author for the courage in bringing this forward again after there was much debate on the bill that removed this language from our laws. It had been on our laws for several years, following corruption investigations, following lawsuits where we tried to get out of very bad deals that had been made on behalf of the people of Guam. And so this effort to restore this language into law, I believe, is very commendable, and it should be, I hope, unanimously passed. In addition to the testimony that the author read, there was also testimony from the current Attorney General in full support of the bill. He said, this bill restores what our past senators understood, specifically that the three greatest powers of the legislative branch are the powers of oversight, passing laws, and spending. Once you delegate or forego any of those three powers, you have no further role in the government. And then he talks about the potential corruption and how the OPA had done many audits and to show us the risks of no oversight over these types of transactions and the importance of checks and balances. And I agree with him. And that I find it interesting that the governor signed this bill into law, whereas there was another bill that she let lapse into law, where she stated in relation to a very similar power that the fact that this unique, unbridled power was conferred on the GIAA for procurement of concessions, the very same type of procurement that was so recently the subject of intense public scrutiny and protracted litigation, begs the question of why our senators would leave the door to potential repeated abuse wide open at a time of intense scrutiny and in the face of such staunch criticism. No agency, even agencies in my administration, should be granted a blank check. When we ignore the safeguards on long-term leases that may allow us some fast cash today for those who are in power or seated in government today, but in the long term, not a good deal for the people of Guam. We saw this. It's the people of Guam who are going to pay that price. They are the ones who are going to look back and say, that was a waste of our resources, a waste of our time, and they are the ones who are suffering from bad deals. And that is the reason we have diminished trust in government. And I think the more open the process is going to be, the more scrutiny it's going to come under, will build trust by the people of Guam in their government. They can weigh in, and it allows that participation, which is critical to a good government. At least that's what all legislatures before us believed. We should have public participation. We should have scrutiny. We should have transparency. We should have oversight. We're talking about our land resources, long-term obligations of the people of Guam, long-term. By passing this measure, which restores the original language in the law, we ensure that transparency is at the forefront of lease agreements involving government of Guam properties. It ensures public scrutiny. It ensures public participation. If the author would yield, the AG had one suggestion, and I just wanted to ask if that had been adopted. A definition of an exceptional term contract.
The
Okay.
author yields to the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the definition, no, it wasn't incorporated in this. I think that we've had that same definition in the Guam Code Annotated for so long. I didn't put it in there. I just maintained the same verbiage it has for years.
Yes, no, you did, yeah. So you did include it on page 3 after
Yes.
subsection 4. For the purpose of this subsection, the term exceptional term contract means any commercial contract, lease, permit, or license that has a term in excess of 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't see that myself either. So I'm glad that that's been included, and I'm confident that we've covered all the bases. And again, this is our job, and I don't think we should delegate that, relegate that, shirk our responsibilities, or ignore the suffering of the people of Guam, who require us to protect them, to speak for them, to scrutinize for them, to advocate for them, and to allow them to do that for themselves as well, through this transparency that this bill offers.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker, just a clarification. It's on section 4. Yes, it was incorporated. However, it was pretty much used the same language, just clarifying it in here so that if it does pass, it will be corrected in the Guam Code Annotated as well. Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that. And I'm very grateful to the public auditor for being so straightforward in his testimony, as well as former Governor Calvo. And I think that's very important to note, that even governors who recognize that executive branches would love to have this type of discretion without oversight, they recognize the importance of that oversight, that scrutiny, that transparency for the benefit of the people of Guam. And so I'm in full support of this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. Any other senator wish to speak on the main bill? Any senator? None? Senator Tideway, would you like to close? Oh. Senator Barnett, let's raise our hands together.
Thank you for the opportunity to rise in the strongest support possible. If I could rise any more, I would rise in support of this bill, which seeks to reinstate legislative oversight on exceptional term contracts. And that oversight of these exceptional term contracts was removed in the first public law from this 38th Guam legislature. And I want to thank the bipartisan co-sponsors, of course, Senator Taitagui, myself, Senator Terlahi, Senator Perez, Senator Calvo, and our good speaker, Senator Frank Blas Jr., for their support of this. And I'm hoping that we could get this measure passed. It was my amendment to Public Law 38-1 that sought to reinstate the legislative oversight of these exceptional term contracts. At the time, the bill had been amended, and we had raised the threshold for exceptional term contracts from 5 years to 15 years, which, if you go back and watch the discussion on the bill that became Public Law 38-1, that was a big compromise. There were some in the body, good colleagues of mine, who were hesitant to support raising that threshold from 5 years to 10 years. But, you know, through collaboration and healthy debate, eventually the 15 years was added and then subsequently passed into law. But the problem was that bill struck out the entire section that dealt with legislative oversight on exceptional term contracts. So I had tried to amend that, and that amendment failed, unfortunately. So here we are today. So just for the people of Guam watching, an exceptional term contract is defined as a contract or a lease that goes above what triggers legislative oversight. And so right now, agencies, the government of Guam can enter into contracts of up to 15 years without senators even getting an eye on that. And even worse, my dear people of Guam, is because we weren't able to amend that bill, it's exactly like I said in the session where Public Law 38-1 was passed. Right now, and since that public law was signed by the governor, agencies in the government of Guam could enter into 15-year leases, 15-year contracts, 20-year leases, contracts, 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, without any of the people's duly elected representatives getting eyes on these leases or these contracts. And as the retiring speaker said, the people of Guam want us to advocate for them, not abdicate our responsibilities to safeguard not just taxpayer dollars, but the people's land. And so it's very encouraging that we heard from Governor Joseph Ada Maulik, and he says, you know, removing legislative oversight on exceptional term contracts, T. Maulik, I know. Also, the support of former Governor Calvo and the public auditor, the former Speaker B.J. Cruz. I mean, it's very rare that you get, and the Attorney General Douglas Moylan, it's very rare that you get those four individuals agreeing on anything, quite frankly, just given the partisanship and some of the like philosophical divides, but they all agreed that it's in the best interest of the people of Guam to have the legislature review any contracts, in this case, over 15 years. So as it stands today, my dear people of Guam, we have no idea how many leases, how many contracts, 15 years and in excess of 15 years have been entered into without the knowledge of the people's voices here in the legislature. And all they would have to do is submit a simple determination of need. and that's it. No check, no balance, no oversight. And so I'm hoping that the support of the titular head, I know that the party chair sits to my right here, but the speaker, as the highest ranking member in the legislature, is the titular head of the Republican Party in this case. I'm hoping that his support of this measure will be a signifier for some of our colleagues here in the 38th Guam Legislature. I know sometimes the debate is divisive, and I think that's because, you know, there are things happening in this hall that we just simply can't agree on. And I think, you know, a lot of us pose good arguments, and we should pose those arguments, not just argue. And so I'm hoping that the support of former Governor Calvo, Governor Ada, of course, Speaker Blas, Attorney General Doug Moylan also cited his concerns with the removal of the legislative oversight on the exceptional term contracts. It just makes sense. For the sake of transparency and safeguarding the people of Guam's interests, I didn't understand why we removed the oversight in the first place. Because that, as one of the retiring speakers said, is one of our main responsibilities. Dealing with the people's land, dealing with these exceptional term contracts. So I commend the good senator from Tamuning, and I'm grateful that we're able to get this bill onto the agenda in the same year where we passed Public Law 38-1. And just for the sake of transparency and safeguarding the people of Guam's interests, because I don't know whose interest it serves to allow contracts of 15, 50, 100 years to be entered into without the legislative scrutiny. And at the time we had discussed this public law and this issue, a lot of the narrative in this hall was that, oh, we maintain oversight all the time. And so if we see a contract that's been entered into, or we see a determination of need that's sent to the legislature, then we can exercise that oversight. But what good is oversight if the chicken already ran out of the coop? What good is oversight when the deed is done? And so, my dear colleagues, let's restore our legislative oversight. We've already compromised on the issue. So as it stands now, again, my dear people of Guam, leases, contracts, 15 years, and below, those can be entered into. And so the compromise there was, you know, we have colleagues who say, oh, we need to be more business friendly. The governor in her message signing Public Law 38-1 called the measure business friendly. And so all of the arguments about allowing these agencies to have the leeway to enter into these leases and contracts with these entities, whether they be from on island or off, although I didn't necessarily agree, I think 10 years is a little more reasonable. 15 is where it's at now. And so I think it's absolutely prudent, and it serves the interests of Guam for any contract that is over 15 years and a day. Bring it to the people's house. Bring it here to the session hall. And if it's a good deal for Guam, it will survive the light of day. Because we've seen in the recent past, you look at the lease that was being proffered for the new hospital over there in Manilao. They kept saying it was such a great deal for the people of Guam. But when we cut on the lights, well, we know how that turned out. Didn't turn out so well, now did it? And that was because of legislative scrutiny and legislative oversight. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the bill, which I think should pass unanimously given the bipartisan support of it, and really just the logic behind scrutinizing and maintaining our oversight here as senators, which again, for contracts over 15 years, I think is the right thing to do. Sidu Sumasi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Senator Calvo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Half a day, sir. I rise today in strong support of Bill 119-38, not just because it is supported by well-respected individuals, Governor Ada, Governor Calvo, as well as Public Auditor Cruz, Attorney General Moylan, and not to mention Speaker Blas. I support it because at its heart, this is not simply a policy change. It is a reaffirmation of our fiduciary duty as elected members of this body. We were not elected to be passive observers. We were elected to safeguard the laws of this land, the laws of our island, to uphold transparency in government, and most importantly, to serve as a check and balance to other powers. I may not speak loud at times, Mr. Speaker, but I push to act in magnitude. Legislative oversight is not optional. It is our constitutional obligation. Mr. Speaker, Bill 119-38 restores legislative review over exceptional term agreements involving public lands and facilities. These are not minor contracts, especially if they are high-value, long-term deals that shape Guam's economic, environmental, and social future. We cannot just surrender one of the legislature's core responsibility. Our responsibility, Mr. Speaker, is to be oversight of public assets. One where decisions about public land use potentially lasting many, many, many years could be made without legislative scrutiny. That is not governance, Mr. Speaker. That is abdication. Our duty is to the people, not to expediency. We hold a fiduciary duty to protect the public trust. Public land is not ours. It belongs to the people of Guam. We are merely stewards. And as stewards, our job is to ensure that deals are made in public interest, to ensure that the terms are equitable, transparent, and fiscally sound, to ensure that long-term obligations are not made behind closed doors or without a full understanding of their consequences. This bill, Mr. Speaker, restores the guardrails that protect against abuse, mismanagement, and neglect. It does not slow down progress. It ensures that progress is deliberate, accountable, and defensible. Check and balance, Mr. Speaker, is not obstruction. It is actually governance. Some may argue that this bill creates an unnecessary hurdle. I would argue the opposite, Mr. Speaker. It actually creates structure. It reasserts the legislature's rightful place in vetting process, approving process, and defending the use of public resources. No single agency or administrator should have unchecked authority to make binding decisions that stretch decades in the future. That's not how representative democracy works. That's how problems get hidden until they become too costly to fix. Bill 119-38 is not about politics, Mr. Speaker. It is about policy integrity and institutional accountability. We need to reclaim our mandate. Colleagues, we are entrusted with the highest responsibility to represent the people and uphold the law. That includes asking hard questions, demanding transparency, and ensuring that every deal involving public resources is made with legislative oversight and public awareness. If we do not assert that role, Mr. Speaker, then who will? We were elected to do our job. Let us pass Bill 119-38, not out of habit, not out of tradition, but out of a clear recognition that the people elected us to protect what belongs to them, not to give it away in silence. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Calvo. Senator Dueñas, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and I rise in support of this legislation, but I need to take us on the journey that got us here and some clarifications. There have been several pieces of legislation introduced to extend what was prior only 5 years ability to lease government of Guam property, make significant investments, millions and millions of dollars, and have to come to the legislature for oversight and confirmation of that lease. None other than Senator Tom Atta had testified on other pieces of legislation that would recognize this has been a prohibition to being able to get investment into Guam. Subsequently, a compromise was made and arrived at for the 15 years. Mr. Speaker, I asked during the public hearing the Attorney General, and he was clear on the record, the 15 years, even without the exceptional contract, was still going to be 15 years. Yes, I support putting it back in, but let's be clear. That 15 years is 15 years, no matter what. And I was the one who stated, yes, it is every legislature going forward. No legislature binds any legislature prior to any rule of law. Can simply step in and on a demonstration of need, terminate anything because you can't go beyond that 15 years. But I want to be clear also, whatever the governor is going to do with the airport bill, let the governor do it. But let's discuss that as well because it was brought up in connection to this issue. The bottom line is it was the airport and consultants and others, representatives of the governor's office that came down and testified on the bill that would allow up to 50 years. That because of their unique situation where they are managed by the FAA and controlled by those strict regulations, that for that particular investment, there could be that latitude. That was what this body had based itself on going forward. True and correct. So I do support this. I do support what we're doing. What we're doing certainly is no question about the stop at 15 years. I agree with that. What we were talking about during the conversation during that time was the 15 years going to be 15 years? And yes, it is. I was the one who asked the Attorney General, please reiterate the fact that we define exceptional contracts so that it is clear going forward, no question about it, that the term after 15 years cannot be extended and would require legislative approval. But right now, any government of Guam entity that is going out and soliciting opportunities for lease of Gov Guam property can do so now up to 15 years without legislative approval. I asked for clarification, and I'm sure you can find it easily in the committee report, from the OPA, whom I respect deeply and highly, and said, what is your thoughts of this process? Because we were doing this so that we could possibly get investment at least at a level up to 15 years where an investor could recoup their investment without having to come down to the legislature and bear their trade policies. And he simply said, and I respect him for that, it should be legislative approval for whatever. That's his position. I respect that. But the decision of the body was to go to 15 years. We are at 15 years. With the restoration of this language, it doesn't go beyond 15 years. The policy is being made now. The policy could have been made any time, any day going forward. But it's being made now, and I will vote in the affirmative for it. But let's be clear, the 15 years is the 15 years. Yes, a demonstration of need could have been sent down. Yes, a future legislature in the future could say, move forward, because demonstration of need has been determined and it's suitable. But I support what we're doing. But I want to be clear about the path and how we got here. Many, many agencies and instrumentalities have come to the legislature saying, we have opportunities to benefit the people of Guam for investment opportunities. But we cannot get leased properties with only a 5-year return on investment. Like I said, Mr. Speaker, in closing, we'll look forward to whatever the governor wants to make on the decision on allowing the airport lease to lapse. Whether there's a reversal of position from the board, whether there's a reversal of position from the lawyers who reviewed it initially, whether there's a reversal of that position, let it be. We'll see when the legislation arrives or executive order gets promulgated. Maybe has, and see if they're going to codify that law. But we have what we have now, and I support the restoration of the language so it's clear. But let's be clear right now. 15 years is 15 years. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Anyone else on the measure on Bill 119-38? Any other speaker? Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning to my colleagues. I just want to rise to register my full support of this bill. I think it's really critical when we're talking about exceptional term contracts which exceed 15 years for any commercial contract, lease, permit, or license. I think that is when oversight is greatly needed when we're talking about these long-term contracts, especially if it so happens that the contract is not serving the best interest of the public. I do want to commend the author for ensuring that this language has been restored, because this is, without it, we are open to potential abuse of these extended contracts, which didn't have any legislative oversight prior to this. And that is a time when we greatly need it. We greatly need the vetting of any long-term contract. We know as a people that we've been subjected to these long-term leases beyond our lifetimes, and it doesn't serve the best interest of us. So we know from history what these long-term leases and contracts can do to us. And so I thank the Governor Calvo, I thank Public Auditor, I thank the AG for their guidance and wisdom in ensuring and speaking out and ensuring that this piece of statute, it gets restored so that we can look back and say that we are protecting and working for the public trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Perez. Any other member wish to speak on Bill 119-38? If not, Senator Taitigui, you're welcome to close.
Sejus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to all my colleagues who stood up and spoke in favor of this legislation and agree that this is something very important. And I just wanted to make it clear that we passed legislation too as well for the airport. This does nothing to that legislation that we passed for the airport. It still stands in the affirmative of that. But again, we are at this juncture because we looked at extending this term contracts that we have for our agencies to go out and even our autonomous agencies so they can generate revenue. And 5 years, I remember, Mr. Speaker, I was the first one who came in to raise that up to 10 years in the 35th Guam Legislature. And then I even tried it again in the 36th Guam Legislature. Because I know the importance of how businesses work and how they need to recover their investment. You don't invest $1 million into something and not be able to recover that back and make a profit. Sometimes businesses take at least 5 years or even beyond that to recover. So I do understand the importance of it. But we went from 30 years to 15. There was a 30-year contract that came out and there was a 10. I had 10. And this is all from 5. So we came to a happy medium. I set my bill aside. I decided to work with the author who decided to put out 30 years. And then we came to a compromise to go to 15. And I was fine with that. But it was that one part that was stricken out. And even legal tried to warn us that this is not a good thing. Anything after 15 years would not be able to be scrutinized. It's as simple as, exceptional contracts is as simple as just writing a letter saying, okay, this is an exceptional contract. And boom, it's done. It can get through by not only the director, but even a board. I have to quote one of my colleagues who stood up, the good senator from Barragata, who said, it's our fiduciary duty. Wow. It is. It is our responsibility to be the gatekeepers of our people's money and land. But one of the things that, and I can, hear him in my head, as former Governor Eddie Cavell, when he would speak to us as his special assistants when we were working on projects. And I can hear him actually just when he wrote this letter, his voice. And I just wanted to quote one section that he wrote in his testimony again. He said, Bill 119 puts back in place a mechanism that ensures large-scale agreements receive public scrutiny before they are finalized. This kind of check and balance is not obstruction, it's good governing. That, I could hear it, it's good governance. I wish I could imitate how he does it, like that, Good governance. And that should resonate with everyone here. It's about good governance. It's about a fiduciary duty. All those together means a win-win for Guam, Mr. Speaker. And humbly ask for everyone's support. And I now place Bill 119-38 in the voting file, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to place Bill 119-38 into the voting file. Any objections? No objections? Next on the agenda is Bill number 135-38 COR. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I move to place Bill 135-38 as amended by the Committee on Lands and was introduced by myself, Senator Joe S. Nelson, along with Senator Will Parkinson and Senator Sean Gamatao, and is an act to amend the Chamorro Land Trust lease agreement with the Guam International Country Club, Incorporated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is my second introduction of this measure. The first in the last term, and I am grateful for the opportunity to finally speak on this bill on the floor. Please bear with me, my colleagues, as I give you a historical timeline to the CLTC lease with the Guam International Country Club. 37 years ago, in 1988, the Guam Legislature passed Public Law 19-34, a bill authored by, as many have said, a great statesman by the name of Senator Joe T. San Augustine, my father, to authorize the lease of Lot 10122-12 for the purpose of a municipal golf facility. At that time, the property was under the Department of Land Management and required that the lease obtain the governor and legislature approval. In 1989, GICC obtained that approval and began their work with a lease. In 1994, the property was transferred from Land Management to CLTC as the lessor. CLTC then determined that the GICC lease was valid through 2014. In 2014, CLTC executed a 24-year lease that is still effective through 2039. From 2012 to 2015, the Office of Public Accountability conducted a compliance audit and questions arrears, pricing, and appraisal determining that the lease was not valid as it did not use mass appraisal data. The OPA sought legal opinion from the Attorney General. In December 2016, the Attorney General responded via letter opining on the OPA inquiry and stated that the GICC lease with CLTC was valid. GICC has since been collaborating with CLTC to address the matter pertaining to arrears and updated property taxes to ensure the lease remains viable and sustainable. Unfortunately, for the past several years, GICC was not seeing positive results from the downturn in tourism and local patrons due to factors that were exacerbated by COVID and Typhoon Mawar. Today, GICC is seeking our assistance to allow for the amendment of their lease, to allow for the generation of solar power as an option to the use of their lease. Mr. Speaker, this bill presents more than just helping GICC amend their lease. It is another bill that I proffer to help CLTC with resources. It is another bill that can help our island. As we all understand, Chamorro Trust Commission was established in 1975 to address the housing needs of Chamorro families, and despite the numerous land trust properties available, many Chamorro families still lack housing due to inadequate infrastructure. CLT faces persistent funding shortages to improve this infrastructure and turn to commercial lease to generate necessary funding. Lot number 10122-12 in the municipality of Dedu is owned by CLTC and was transferred to the Commission in 1994 from the Governor of Guam. The property is leased and is currently a rate-controlled golf course. However, due to various factors over the last several years, including the Asian financial crisis, the SARS outbreak, and the COVID-19 pandemic, the property has struggled financially. To address the challenges plagued by these factors, CLTC agreed to a payment plan with GICC, allowing them to pay overdue rent by October 2026. GICC has been making regular payments towards the overdue rent and is on pace to pay off the overdue rent on time. Furthermore, the Chamorro Land Trust and the Guam International Country Club have discussed ways to improve rental cash flow. GICC proposed developing a solar farm on the property, which GICC approved in a prior board resolution in 2024. That resolution included stipulations that were included in Bill 135. These include the designation of approximately 5 hectares surrounding the GICC Country Clubhouse and maintenance storage building with surrounding properties of 1 acre for the use of CLTC, the Ancestral Lands Commission, the Department of Land Management. This will save hundreds of thousands of dollars in office rent. All components of the solar panel must be free of PFAS substance and remove all solar farm components at the end of the lease by recycling and not disposed in Guam's landfill. Number 3, GICC must provide a money guarantee to ensure the financial security, proper removal, and timely payment of rent. CLTC must be responsible for the overhead maintenance costs of the facilities and grounds that they would occupy on the premises. If the property is not used for renewable solar power, the provisions will be null and void. GICC is required to comply with all applicable building codes, environmental regulations, including all federal laws and regulations related to building, construction, environmental protection, including but not limited to the International Building Code, ADA, Clean Water, Air Acts, NEPA, Resource Conservation Recovery Act as enforced by Guam and the United States. The main benefits of this bill will include the immediate payment of arrears. CLTC would receive the balance of arrear rent within 30 days of the bill being enacted into law. Acceleration of rent and increased acceleration of rent. GICC will accelerate the payment of future rent to CLTC, increasing the rent escalation rate from 10 to 12% every 5 years. Instead of collecting monthly rent, GICC will pay an accelerated rent of $14 million, which is the net present value of the future rent cash flow estimated at $9 million. It is important to note, CLTC will use its own MAI certified appraiser to determine the net present value, unless CLTC choose another appraiser. GICC will pay the accelerated rent in 2 installments, 10% upon signing the power purchase agreement with GPA, and the remaining 90% when the power is first delivered. Until both installments are paid, GICC will continue to pay monthly rent. Rent savings for CLTC, Guam Ancestral Land, Department of Land Management, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, Guam Ancestral Land Commission, and the Department of Land Management currently pay over $800,000, almost $1 million annually in commercial rent. By dedicating the current club as a permanent house for these agencies, the government can save over $26 million in rent over the duration of GICC extended lease term to 2055. Constructing a new permanent home comparable to the clubhouse would cost the government of Guam $10 million. A permanent saving for electricity ratepayers, the 65 megawatt solar farm will produce clean electricity, allowing Guam Power Authority to forego the purchase of 13 million gallons of fuel annually, saving over $20 million per year. These savings will be passed on to all GPA ratepayers. This will also significantly contribute to Guam's efforts to meet the clean renewable energy goals established in Public Law 35-46, which aims for 50% of electricity to be generated from renewable sources by 2035 and 100% by 2045. There are so many direct benefits, but there are also many indirect benefits. This bill will greatly stimulate job creation and workforce development in construction, engineering, and environmental compliance. It will also encourage private investment in new residential construction and, most importantly, home ownership on trust lands, enhancing community resilience and emergency preparedness with improved facilities and infrastructure. Mr. Chair, with over 11,000 acres of land, CLTC has issued just 2,900 leases since the birth of the homestead program in the 90s, including only 2 leases in the last couple of years, and more than 8,000 eligible applicants remain on the wait list. Bill 135 is a great step toward meeting many goals. The goals of harnessing sun for energy, providing CLTC with much-needed capital for improvement on trust land, and most importantly, laying the path to giving our families the safety and comfort of home ownership. I humbly ask for your support. I ask that all my colleagues for Bill 135-38 of the legislation will enhance our shared goals of strengthening CLTC's infrastructure for our families, promotes renewable energy that benefits our community, provides a sustainable solution for the future of our island. Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. On the motion to place Bill number 13538 COR, is there anyone who, to the third reading file, or is there anyone who wishes to speak? Senator Sabina Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a question for the sponsor of the bill. So I know there was a bill that was previously, introduced and we discussed it last term. So what changes have been made to the bill? If we can highlight those changes.
Senator San Augustine, do you yield to the question?
I'm not quite sure. I have to go back and try to cut and paste and see what the differences are, but this is a new bill. This is a new bill and it's moving forward. It identifies all the same requirements, generally the same thing. So I really can't dissect that. I didn't come prepared to decide what happened last year that never moved anywhere, versus today it's moving forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. Senator Perez.
Okay, and if the author can explain, so section, just to kind of highlight some sections. So section 4, it talks about payments in advance for rent. So it states that the lessee shall pay all rents due under the amended lease in advance at its net present value, to be determined by the member of Appraisal Institute, certified licensed real estate appraiser, selected by the Chamorro Land Trust and paid for by GICC, utilizing a market-based discount rate, and shall not be less than $9 million, with 10% paid within 30 days of the power purchase agreement that is entered into with GPA, and then the 90% paid within 30 days of the date of solar power is transmitted to the Guam Power Authority. So being that is that what this vendor or provider would pay? So whatever is being paid, that's it for the remainder of the term?
Senator San Augustine.
If they pay in advance?
Madam Speaker, as I read earlier in my opening, if I'm correct, I have to look at the bill again one more time just to. Expansion during the current lease, you know, we're looking at page 6, my colleagues. And you were reading on line...
Page 3, line 15 to
Page 3, line
25.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. Page 3, in the event the property is used for generation. If you look at it, it says every 5 years, the current rental escalation rate of 10% every 5 years should be increased to an escalation rate of 12%.
Oh, no, sorry, the one below that. So number 4, we're looking at number 4.
Which one are you looking at? In the event the property is not used?
Line 15 to 25.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're reading the escalation rate.
That's as it's moving every 5 years.
Yeah,
So-
but the part that I'm asking about is the one below that. So the part where if there's an advance payment on the rents, do you see that part?
That's correct. The $9 million.
Right. So if the lessee is expected to pay, let's say, is this all that's expected of the lessee to pay for the full term of this contract? If they pay in advance?
As you read the bill, Madam Speaker, utilizing market-based discount rate shall not be less than $9 million with 10% paid within 30 days under the purchase power agreement. That could be construed as such as $9 million. But then there's also the escalation rate of the rental. So you're asking if that's just $9 million and that's it?
Yeah.
And all arrears?
So if they pay this up front, is that all they're allowed going to pay for the rest of the term?
Based on the bill, that may be correct.
Okay. Yeah, that is a cause of concern. Thank you. That's a cause of concern for me because if we're talking about a term that can last up to 2055 and this leasee is only paying $9 million, you know, we know that power generation can bring in so much more money to the Chamorro Land Trust. I believe when we're in the discussions, in some of the discussions, there was talk that we could be raising $20 million per year times the number of years, and yet Chamorro Land Trust is only going to get $9 million if that's the case, right? So I think the concern is that this is a bad deal for the Chamorro Land Trust. But in looking at further along in the bill, I know there's other amendments to the lease, potential lease, where there could be an escalation every 5 years. So it seems to be conflicting in regards to advance payments as well as this escalation. So but according to the author, that if they pay it up front, then they are then possibly only going to pay much of a smaller amount. And so my concern is that the Chamorro Land Trust is not going to get the best deal out of this. And when we're talking about infrastructure costs, right? You know, that's one of the biggest things, surveying costs, infrastructure cost, building cost. We know these things are have a high price tag for our beneficiaries. We want to make sure that the Chamorro Land Trust gets the best deal possible so that they can support the mission of the Chamorro Land Trust to give as a land restoration program and a home and for them to build their homes. So my concern is that with this part of the bill, it might do just that. The other parts, and I know many in the public have testified about the environmental issues. I do appreciate that the PFAS issue with the solar panels is one of the things, right? So to my knowledge, you know, maybe this is a question for the sponsor of the bill. Are there any producers out there that produce PFAS-free solar panels.
Senator San Augustine, do you yield to the question?
Madam Speaker, I don't know who else is out there providing solar that's PFAS free, but if you, oops.
We will take a 5-minute recess until the
Okay.
power is restored.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, my colleagues. While we're on this short break and the power interruption, Majority Leader Senator Lujan, you're recognized, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Again, Mr. Speaker, we have the folks here from Japan Airlines and the Guam Business Bureau, and this marks basically 55 years that Japan Airlines has been on Guam. So if I can call them up here, we recognize them while we're in the legislative recess. Mr. Speaker?
Sure. Majority Leader Lujan, if you can just go ahead and have the folks from Japan Airlines and GVB to come up to the front here, and we can give them a short recognition while we're on recess. Senator Lujan.
Good morning again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, buenos and half a day. Today I'm honored to recognize Japan Airlines for 55 years, remarkable years of service to Guam. You know, as my name, Jesse Anderson Lujan, I'm also a JAL. Wow, that's 55 years. That's a little bit older than I am. So, okay, right. What an amazing accomplishment, right? It's not very often we see a company with this length of service to a community. It's an honorable commitment to the market and its people. JAL is not just an airline. They are pioneers. Their arrival in 1970 marked the beginning of a new era for our island, one that coincided with the founding of the Guam Visitors Bureau. Together, JAL and GVB helped shape the foundation of our tourism industry, with Japan being our lead source market for decades. You've opened Guam to the world. To the distinguished executives joining us today, of course, Ms. Kaoru-san and Mr. Ogawa-san, and the rest of your team, as well as the Guam Visitors Bureau. Your leadership continues a legacy built on trust, excellence, and deep respect for our island and its people, and we thank you for your enduring partnership and commitment to Guam's growth. Congratulations again on 55 years, and here's to many more years of relationship with the people of Guam. And off a day, and thank you very much.
So it's the first time for me, sorry. So thank you very much for your introduction, Sinta. So nice to meet you. I am Kaori Nishiharaguchi from Japan Airlines. So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me such a valuable opportunity. So yesterday, Japan Airlines was able to celebrate the 55th anniversary of the launch of the Guam-Tokyo route. So I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the customers and the Guam government, the Guam Visitors Bureau, and everyone included. So demand is gradually increasing after the pandemic. And we will contribute to do our best. We will continue to do our best to bridge the flow of people, logistics, and cultural exchange between Guam and Japan. So we look forward to your continued support. So I hope for the further development of Guam and the happiness of everyone. Thank you very much.
Again, on behalf of Vice Speaker Ada, myself as Senator Lujan as the Chair of Tourism and Aviation, and my co-chairs, of course, Senator Duenas, Senator Shelley Calvo, Ranking Member, of course, Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes, and the rest of the 38th Guam Legislature, who most of them are members of the committee. Congratulations, and again, 55 years and more years to come as well. So if we can have congratulations, and we'll take a group photo, okay, with everybody? Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I can have my colleagues please come up onto the dais, and then we'll take a group photo from here. Yeah, stand behind them. You can, Legislature's called back to order. Sorry for that short inconvenience as we had a power outage and we recessed. We had our visitors come in. Senator San Augustine, you're answering a question from Senator Perez. Did you yield to that question?
Well, I just wanted to clarify something because she asked this just a question earlier in reference to the 9 million. If you look at the bill, it's no less than 9 million. When they do the appraisal value, it could go as high as maybe 15 million. Yes, and it's for the duration of the lease. But we need to understand that also part of this is that the company is going to be bringing in and spending money to do the project. It's estimated that it could go as much as $300 million. Nobody else is contributing. CLTC is not contributing anything, which is part of the agreement. We'll bring in the solar, we'll do the program, and that's where the multiplier effect that will help the economy. At the same time, there's 36,000 square feet of rental they could allow because of the clubhouse. If Chamorro Trust was to even lease it out for $1 a square foot, they can generate as much as $36,000 a month or more, closer to $500,000 a year in that rental alone, and that goes to CLTC. And there's a multiplier effect in the businesses. When people invest, it spreads across the whole island for construction and everything else. And I hope I answered that because if you look, before we got to the 9 million, no less than 9 million, above that, if they do the appraisal and they say that it's more than that, more than 15 million, they'll pay that. They'll have to pay it because that's part of the bill. No less than 9 million to start. At least you can expect that for Chamorro Trust, who doesn't have any money and who's not gaining anything from a golf course. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator.
I hope that answers my colleague's question and anything further.
Senator Perez, did I answer your question, ma'am?
Okay, yes. So, but again, the problem still exists that we are going to get a minimal amount for the length of a term that can extend to 2055. And so if you divide that up, that doesn't leave CLTC with much money to pay for infrastructure. I think that even $15 million, what can that pay for in regards to thousands of beneficiaries that need homes, right, in vast areas, a vast expanse on Guam. Whereas the business, so again, I think this is more business friendly than Chamorro Land Trust friendly or protection in the interest of Chamorro Land Trust because it's looking out for the business. How are they going to get as much money in return for this versus how much the Chamorro Land Trust is going to gain? And that's I think the underlying problem with this bill to me. Again, we've seen bad deals before, and even when terms were created, licenses were created, they were ignored, in which, thousands upon thousands of aggregate was stolen from our land. And I don't want to repeat history by supporting something that is not a good deal for Chamorro Land Trust or doesn't look or prioritize the interests of the Chamorro Land Trust. The other things that were stated in the public hearing, so I know the neighbors in that area were very concerned about flying solar panels coming into their properties, and considering this is a massive development, we're talking about a massive development of a solar farm. The potential for that flying around into the neighbor's yard, and we know that as islanders here that have experienced many strong typhoons, which is expected to get stronger due to climate change, this is a concern. The other things that were brought up by those that testified was the environmental damage. So these are potential wetlands for migrating birds, the Mariana's moorhen and other endangered species. The other thing to think about is that would this have an impact on the flying airspace? The reflection of any type of reflective surfaces can blind any type of kind of flying over these areas. And so that could also lead to potential other damages, and as far as crashes are concerned. So I think that, yeah, this is a concern all around. I don't think this is really looking at the best interests of Chamorro Land Trust. I know they have escalator clauses. That's something that it's good to see these things now in these types of bills. This is an improvement in our past types of legislation where we just gave it at $10,000 for 30 years and a basketball court, right? But to me, it doesn't satisfy what is needed. $15 million is not going to go a long way for infrastructure, for homes. And in looking at some of the, in some of the studies that were done, $7 million just for, is what's, at least $7 million for, one home, I think, even, possibly. So these are, it doesn't meet the needs of Chamorro Land Trust. This is Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. Any other member wish to speak on the bill? Any other member? No other member wish to speak on the bill? Senator Terlahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm kind of waiting for some information from the sponsor of the bill. Could we get a 5-minute recess, please?
Colleagues.
Mr. Speaker, the information asked, I'll make sure it's provided to all the colleagues. If there's anything else that I brought up in my opening, such as, I guess, the AG's opinion of valid and any other documents I have, I'll make sure it's available for everyone so they can review it. All right? And we'll have that recess so we can get it. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Legislature's call back to order. Senator Chalahi, you had the floor before we recessed.
Sitos Masi, Mr. Speaker. As you know, we have discussed a bill very similar to this to take the golf course in Derido and convert it to a solar farm. This was at the request of a proposer, somebody who went to the CLTC and requested for this deal to be done, and then came to the legislature and requested for a senator to do it. It was not from the initiation of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission to try to lease out one of its properties, commercial properties, for solar farm, or to seek to partner with a private company in such a thing. And as you know, these types of transactions are normally prohibited, where company or our agencies are going to engage in kind of sole source selection and dealing with the government without the government bidding that out, making it competitive and fair for any other company who wants to get the same type of deal. So this is a special deal for a special company. The current owners or lessors of this golf course who have partnered with other companies to create this solar farm. And if I could ask the sponsor to yield, I was told at the hearing that the other companies are going to be Power Solution and SK EcoPlant from Korea. And I had asked at the hearing for the information to tell me who are the owners of or investors in the Power Solution, but we did not receive that information, so if I could ask the sponsor of the bill to yield.
Would the sponsor of the bill please yield to the question?
I don't know who those other companies are at this point.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
At the hearing, Carlos Camacho said there are two local investors, and he identified Ilao and another one. But when I Google searched Power Solution after the hearing, I found that there are other investors, including a very close relative of one of our colleagues. And at least the one on the website includes Anne-Marie T. Muña. And I'm happy to have local investors in this company, but I just think that if this is the case, then we should determine whether there's any type of conflict before we proceed. My number one concern with this bill is that it allows the current lessor of the golf course to continue to use this property, but to convert it. And this is contrary, of course, to what the previous legislatures had dedicated this property to. They didn't dedicate it to housing, they specifically dedicated it to a golf course, and the proceeds of it were going to go to the commission. So I think transforming it, we heard so much from the community about that, their concerns about transforming it. Then we heard concerns from the residents of Derido, and in fact, the Municipal Planning Council of Derido revoked their support for this bill because of the concerns of its residents and their objections or oppositions to it. And the bill continues to value the property at this 1989 value that the public auditor, since 2016, I believe, has criticized and said that the transaction of this lease on the golf course has been questioned by that auditor because they did not take advantage of raising that appraisal since 1989. But that is still the underlying value. Even now, while we're going to transition into this huge other type of use of the property, we're using the same value from 1989, with the 5% additions every 5 years or that were allowed by the lease. And I think everybody can agree that that is very undervalued. And while this new bill does provide that this will be increased at a certain point, it doesn't increase it today or doesn't allow that revaluation today. While we are extending this lease by 31 years, 30 years now, they will get instead of 5% increase, they will get an escalation of 12% increase. But then that's an escalation on a very undervalued amount. That's the issue. The other issue is the Chamorro Land Trust getting the value that they should be getting on this property? If they could lease this out, if they decided no more golf course, we need a solar, why didn't they bid that out? Why didn't they get the highest bidder? And the reason is because this company, this golf course lessor of the Chamorro Land Trust property together with these other companies had already submitted bids to GPA. They're already on the list of solar companies. They didn't even get permission from the CLTC or the legislature. They just went ahead very presumptuously and bid. And that's why they are so desperate for this approval today. Despite the valuations and the concerns of the residents, it's because of the cash. But yes, they're going to make an investment, but let's talk about what is the deal for Guam, for the Chamorro Land Trust. They're going to get $9 million on this undervalued lease paid in advance. KEPCO made $17 million from GPA in 1 month. That's 1 month. And that's why I don't, there's nothing in the minutes or any analysis done as to cost benefit for the CLTC on this, or potential partnering with these companies for the profits, nothing. And that's why I say, because there's no competition, because they were only dealing with one dealer, and they negotiated with them already. It's quite astounding to me, because the Chamorro Land Trust laws that were passed by Tom Atta back in, I think, the 33rd legislature were very, very clear because of problems that we had with commercial leases, that these should be competitive. That's how we're going to ensure that the Chamorro Land Trust gets best value. Now, they in their discussions, added some measures to the bill to increase the value. For example, it's going to change after 2039. The value of the underlying lease would be changed, the fair market rent, but that's in 2039. And this is why I don't understand. It's like if we want to engage in these businesses, then they should do that. They should put out property and say, we are going to rent this out for any company who wants to develop a solar farm. And then they should pick a property that's not designated as having endangered species or potentially hazardous to the residents in the area. And that is really still concerns me. Despite all the discussions on this bill and all of that, we even had Mayor Savara's in here for the public hearing. We're still, the legislature seems dead set on continuing with this deal. And I just think the Land Trust Commission should not feel so desperate to comply with the bids of these businesses when they could have their choice. they could solicit and get some real competition. One of the lead proponents of this, Mr. Tang, did not attend the hearing, and I wanted to talk to him about this development, not available. Again, I don't think that the company was being truthful to us or their representatives in telling us who's involved in the project, who the investors are, and what are the potential downsides to this, because those all had to come from other community participants. So I object to this bill for the same reasons I objected it last time. I think it undervalues the Chamorro Land Trust property from the start, and that although measures have been added, it doesn't bring up that value right away, immediately.
Thank you, Senator Talahi. Any other member wish to speak on the bill?
I don't, Mr. Speaker, if I may, just on a point of information or a point of inquiry based on what the previous speaker spoke about potential conflicts of interest and bringing up a colleague here has a conflict of interest, and the name was brought up. Amriti Munya is my older sibling. She's my oldest sister. And if there's anything in the articles or regulations that have her as a potential and a potential contractor or what have you, or vendor, please let me know, because I am not aware of any of this. And there are speculations even on previous bills, but nothing has ever come to me. And now that it's being brought up, I want to make sure that I know nothing and I don't see or hear anything in the committee report or anything of my sibling's name being a part of the company, so of the present golf course or anything to that effect. So please let me know. I'll ask the restraining speaker if she can bring the documents that prove that I have a conflict. Sinamasi.
Thank you, Ranking Member Barnes. Any other member wish to speak on the motion? Senator Gumatata, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to rise in support of Bill 135-38, of which I'm a co-sponsor. When Public Law 12-226 was enacted into public law, it was also a significant date for me. February 4th, 1975. It was my 4th birthday. While it went by as uneventful in the simple sense, that was not the case when signed by the governor of Guam, Ricardo J. Berdallo, and certainly not the case for his brother and Senator Paul Berdallo for his work on that policy. In talking to folks who were around this building at the time, Senator Berdallo was looking at a way, among other things, I understand, to support the various housing needs of the people of Guam at the time with the enactment of Public Law 12-226. Interestingly, I learned recently that he may have been more deeply interested in supporting expansion of Public Law 1-33, which was enacted 24 years previously in 1951, that reads in part that our government would prepare and adopt a comprehensive long-term general plan for the physical and economic land development of Guam. Why I mention this now is that there has been rhetoric shared here on the floor since the start of the term and in the public hearing room across the hall that has attempted to retell history or interpret history of how the Chamorro Land Trust Act came about and its motivations. We really should describe these more as a reflection on history. I think that would be probably more appropriate. Mr. Speaker, I'm more convinced today than ever before that bills like Bill 135-38 and others that are part of this agenda, and perhaps in future measures, that we are right in line with where Senator Berdallo meant the Chamorro Land Trust to be in these types of practical policy considerations, reason and logic for a law that he wanted to see executed, even after fits and starts and lawsuits and other impediments, real or perceived. Yes, the Chamorro Land Trust is meant to reserve public land for the use and benefit of all of the people of Guam. This bill mandates the Chamorro Land Trust Commission to work on the lease for the use of lot number 10122-12 in Dedido for the foreseeable future. On June 17, 2025, the Chamorro Land Trust Board of Commissioners motioned and unanimously voted to support Bill 135-38 with the conditions for a lease of the property that are found in the marked up version of this measure. We have been tasked to support this effort, to support each and every beneficiary of the Chamorro Land Trust. And yes, the bill outlines infrastructure investment. Does that sound familiar? Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we met two important ways that we can support our economy and the stewardship of land with the provisions outlined in Bill 135-38. In 2025, we must use history and the inspiration of former members of this body, like Senator Paul Berdallo, to help advance our use of Government of Guam resources as intended 50 years ago, not hold it back. There has been modernization to the Chamorro Land Trust Act over the last 5 decades. This policy can be used to finally support the CLTC in a meaningful way to support all beneficiaries at some point, hopefully sooner than later. Through Bill 135, the Chamorro Land Trust will be one step closer to executing and making much-needed critical infrastructure investments for CLTC beneficiaries, supporting 166 residential lots in Jigo and 211 residential lots in the village of Hagat. No more pauses, no more obstruction. Politics has paralyzed the work of the CLTC for far too long. Mr. Speaker, action is needed today. I believe that Bill 135 is that action, that policy to foster economic development, support growth of Chamorro Land Trust infrastructure, and support all of our people, all beneficiaries of the Chamorro Land Trust. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Gumatata. Any other member wish to speak on Bill 135-38? If not, Senator San Augustine, would you like to close? Senator Title.
No, I'll proceed. No closing. Just ask to send it down to the third reading file, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. I already recognize Senator, I didn't see any hands raised when I recognized Senator San Augustine for the closing. So there's a motion to move Bill 135-38 COR to the third reading. Any objections? There's an objection. All those who in favor of Bill 135-38 COR, please signify by raising your hands. Motion passes. Colleagues, the time now is 11:35. We're going to go ahead and take a recess until 2 p.m. We are in recess.